feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Shrimp Tank. I'm your co-host, Ted Jenkin, here with my co-host, Lee Heisman today. And of course, every week on The Shrimp Tank, we bring you some of the brightest and best CEOs, entrepreneurs, executives all around the country, because what we have tried to do for the last 10 years is use this podcast to give future entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs this combination of book smarts and street smarts and get your MBA in entrepreneurship. And quite frankly, you could pay $100,000 for an education, but you're not going to know how to be an entrepreneur until you get your hands dirty, your head gets a little bit bloody, and you learn what it's like to make mistakes and then eventually hit success. And maybe one day you too can exit stage left and sell your business for a lot of money. As always, if you're listening to us in the car, make sure that you download us on any of the major channels, Apple, Google, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all places to get us. You can always go to shrimptankpodcast.com to hear a replay of all of our broadcasts, or our YouTube channel, Shrimp Tank Podcast, and see videos of some 1,000 entrepreneurs, Lee. And over the years, we've been able to interview people like Brian Dawkins, Hall of Fame safety for the Philadelphia Eagles, Dave Wazalewski, who is the COO of Spanx. We have seen the Williamson brothers, one of the biggest seller of barbecue sauces in the state of Georgia, Tony Horton, founder of P90X. But you said this before the podcast. It's not easy to get me excited. I don't get excited a lot, but I've been trying to track down Cathy forever to get her on the podcast today. She is the CEO of Enolytics. And listen, if you're a wine fan, you're going to learn so much today, because we're not only going to talk about the wine business, we're going to talk about what's happening in the wine industry and how data is making a big change, Lee, in the way that wineries and clubs and many other places operate. But I saw a Wall Street Journal article, Lee, and this was maybe 2 months ago, and it really spurred me on. And it had something to the effect of the great debate about, are red wines better than white wines? And there's actually some cognitive bias about this. And I want to start this podcast off, Lee. And before we get into Cathy's business, I want to get to this debate, because I'm a novice, Cathy, but I feel like when I go out to eat, like, white wine is for wimps and red wine is for, it just has a stronger feel to it. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Well, we have to sort of decide what we mean by strong. But before I even kind of go there, Ted, Lee, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this as well. Yes, it's taken a minute to schedule, but I've been looking forward to it and waiting for it. So thank you very much for the invitation. And we're not in the studio together today, but next time we are definitely cracking open a bottle or two of wine as we do this. And here's what we're going to do to address the question when we do this. Is that, I don't know if you've ever heard this rumor, but if you pour wine in glasses that are dark colored, like black glasses, you actually can't tell when you drink it, if the wine is white or red. If you take the sight away, you can't even tell if it's white or red. I know you're not going to believe me, but I know you're saying, forget it, I'll definitely know. But, some of the best of us have gotten it wrong. So
I think that sounds accurate, because when they do wine tests, right, and you're going to probably tell us a lot today about, and I want to ask about people spending money on wines, but sometimes you can't tell the difference between a $20 bottle of wine and those $100. Now, some people can, but a lot of people can't.
Yeah, those are some of the best tastings to lead, is to pour comparative tasting. Like here, we line up, and I remember doing this with some sparkling wine. We lined up 6 different sparkling wines, price point like $7 a bottle to $175 a bottle. And people sometimes thought the lower price wines were the best ones on the table. And it's fascinating, because what you like, Ted, what you like, Lee, is not going to be what I like, and vice versa. And it's just what, we like what we like. And sometimes the price doesn't reflect sort of the quote unquote quality that other people think it is. But if we like it, then who cares?
So, Cathy, I have to interrupt. And first off, when you get that proximity of you and Ted's relationship, and as I said, I haven't seen Ted get as excited as he mentioned, but he left off one of the most interesting parts, because you're jumping right into it, Ted, and you're forgetting a lot of our viewers and listeners. Number one, you didn't even mention one of the coolest parts of Cathy is her last name, and I'm going to do my best again. It's Huyghe, is that correct? And it's also Flemish in background.
That's right.
So I want you to talk a little bit about, what is that background? And then more importantly, Cathy, for ignorant, again, I'm very ignorant in the wine space. What do you do in your business? You and Ted are jumping right into it, which is awesome. But I want you just to take a step back for our listeners and say, what does your business do? Because you're putting the cart well before the horse here. Just take a few steps back for us.
And this is why Lee's in the room, Ted, right? Like
Yeah.
we need somebody
Yeah.
moderating you and me. Like we're way too
Yeah.
enthusiastic.
Oddly enough, Cathy, many times he's the spaz and I'm the straight one. But when it comes to the show, it's the other way around. He's the straight one and I'm the spaz.
I gotcha. Well, thank you for asking, Lee. So I'm a wine person through and through. I'm a journalist by trade, actually. I'm a communicator. I write about wine, and I have been for about 20 years now. I write about the business and the politics of the wine industry for Forbes, usually, and other places like Men's Journal most recently, and other places too. So it was as I was writing about the business and the technology and the innovation in the wine and spirits world that I recognized that, boy, there's a heck of a lot of data out there in the world, in this industry, but not a lot of business intelligence or strategy applied to that data. And so a couple of years ago, I came up with the name of Enolytics because I'm a writer, I'm a communicator. Eno, of course, refers to the wine, and the lytics refers to the data and the analytics of the industry. And so put that together, Enolytics, and it's been incredible. So we've built the software, we've put that out there. We've got an incredible team, mostly based in Atlanta, and it's been really exciting to raise the bar around what's possible for the business of wine once we start being serious and intentional about using data and strategy and analytics. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So for people who may not know, I want to talk about the business, but the software itself, what kind of information do you analyze in there? And then who do you provide that to? Do you provide it to owners of wineries or people that run, restaurants, or is it a combination of all of it?
Yeah, great question. So we are, wineries are our customers. So we're B2B and we sell the software as a service, to wineries. And they pay us to analyze sales data, Ted. Sales data of wines that are sold directly to consumers. So we have a whole lot of data about the end consumer. Who are they? Where do they live? What have they bought? How much have they spent? Are they boomers? Are they females? Are they Gen Xers? So that's one stream of data. And then we also look at data sold into restaurants and retailers, into the sort of 3 tiers, as we call it. And that is another stream of data coming from a different source. And then we combine them together so that the winery, our end consumer, has the full 360-degree view of every sales channel, which doesn't sound like such a big deal for people, especially for people who do supply chain and things like that. But in the wine industry, it's very significant. This is light years ahead of what a traditional industry, an agricultural industry, farmers, wine growers, grape growers are used to doing. So it's really exciting to be sort of pushing the envelope on it.
So I have to ask, Cathy, when you do this for your customer, the wineries, the locations, the retail shops, do they own the data, or are you compiling it? Are you putting it together, cultivating it to provide them their direction of where they need to shop? That's what it sounds like you're doing. This is very intriguing, but who owns that data?
Yeah, great question. From the direct-to-consumer point of view, Lee, it's definitely the winery's data. It's the winery's data, and the winery gives Enolytics, my company, permission to populate the software with their data. And so it's PII data for sure. We do a very good job of keeping it safe and protected. And that's sort of the roots of the company is in that kind of data. And interestingly, it's obviously very important to keep that data safe and to not have any breaches or not get it out where it shouldn't be. And so our team, our engineers and our chief technology officer, come from the healthcare space. They don't come from the wine space. Around the data is really high and really strong. And so that's protected us a lot of times, I'm sure. it's our opinion that the data belongs to the wineries. It's their first party data.
You know, if we back up on this and you're thinking about starting this software company, there are a lot of people that think about starting an app or starting software to get to a SaaS model. Did you go into this knowing anything about development? Did you bring in partners? How did that start in the germination of just trying to get the software going?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking that question, Ted, because it was an evolution, and we did not get it right at the start. At the start, we knew that we had the analytical capabilities, and so we had an ecosystem of data partners. Our very first and most significant data partner was Vivino, Vivino. You might have it on your phone right now. And so they were our first partner, and they were wonderful to work with. We would make a query and say, our client wants to know, like, what's the general consumer census about Italian wines priced $35 and above. And Vivino has that data. Vivino has that information. So they would transfer it to us, and we would analyze it and deliver that product to the client. Eventually, after a couple of years of this, Vivino decided that they wanted to take that functionality in-house, which kind of left us high and dry. But in the end, it was great because that great word for entrepreneurs is pivot. So we pivoted,
Yeah.
and we started building our own software, where we analyze the winery's own data rather than looking at third-party data. The third-party data is going to come in with Enolytics AI. We're going to be able to combine third-party data with first-party data in our AI, and we're sort of coming full circle in a way back to the third-party data, but our core is working with the winery's own data first.
So, Cathy, I have to interrupt for our listeners out there. If you're keeping track of this and you can get beyond the wonderful presentation, you're right, Cathy, you were a writer, and the way you speak, you're very, very articulate. But if we can get past that, listen to the key words we're throwing out here for viewers out there. Ted's talking about the germination of your idea, just like a grape seed. So you're applying it back there. You said, no, but it's true, Cathy. You said, we were left high and dry. And I know that dry is a determination of wine sometimes. So I'm watching all these little ingredients that you two are throwing into the mix. And I find it quite intriguing from my angle. But what I do enjoy is raw data is only as valuable as it's synthesized. And it sounds like your software synthesizes this data and is able to apply it for the end customer.
Yeah, and probably like a lot of industries, data's in a lot of different places and a lot of different formats. And so a big value add to what we do is to normalize that data. So it's apples to apples.
Would you say grapes to grapes? I mean, can we just keep in this flavor?
Let's say grapes to grapes. We can even say red grapes to red grapes and white grapes to white grapes. How about that? We'll do it that way.
Fair.
But normalizing the data, especially when it's in so many different silos and so many different departments are protective about it. But those barriers to entry are coming down. And I think that the technology is starting to reflect that difference and that evolution of attitudes about data. I think it's just becoming, we're evolving. Even a traditional industry like wine is definitely, growing by leaps and bounds in terms of their attitude.
And and Cathy, when you took Enolytics live, one of the challenges for any business owner is thinking about how you price the product. And obviously with software, I'll notice even big companies like Salesforce, you have to have multiple iterations of the software and what you're going to charge for it. As the software evolves, how do you, as the CEO, think about the pricing model, in the marketplace?
Absolutely. And that's a great question, because there's a lot of different ways to answer it, Ted, and a lot of different things that we've tried. So because what we're offering is very new to the wine industry,
Right.
We can't overprice it because we won't even get a single customer, much as many as we want and need. So really low hanging fruit, sometimes it's a couple $100s a month, which to the wine industry is a lot. It's a lot,
Is it?
especially for the small and medium size wineries. When you get to the bigger wineries, sort of the other end of the spectrum, Ted, boy, that's when I wish that even our highest priced product, what the wineries are able to earn by using our software, it's leaps and bounds beyond what we are charging them. It's to the point where I wish we had worked out some sort of revenue share rather than a flat fee.
Yeah, I was going to
Wow.
say,
For the
Cathy,
software.
is that the future of your, I mean, I get excited listening to new businesses. You know, Ted and I are in the business of selling businesses for people, and I always love to see their growth trajectory. And my question to you is, have you ever done your own analyzation to see your financial impact on your customers? Because it sounds like, you know, although you're analyzing and you're cross-pollinating all the information across the board, you're creating one common language, which is amazing. Have you ever, or do you plan to provide something to show these end customers of yours by using our software? This is all the additional revenue you're bringing in. Have you quantified that, or is that a plan?
We definitely have quantified it. And sometimes, you know, one of the first case studies that we wrote, was with Dry Creek Vineyard in Sonoma. And they were able to show a 600% higher return than what they expected to see, than what they were used to seeing. So they saw that much of an increase in revenue generated after using the software to really get granular about segmentation, customer segmentation, really get in there. And so we have, we keep trying to do this. We keep trying to highlight success stories, you know, retell the narrative about, you know, how possible it is. And our own colleagues, our own friends are doing this. You don't need a data science degree in order to do this. So we can definitely tell, and we've just released some information actually about how much better wineries are performing who use Enolytics to analyze data and to grow their business compared to those who don't. And it's palpable, it's tangible, it's statistically significant.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for us because I want to talk a little bit about the wine business in general because you're in and around it all the time. And I want to tell everybody, if you want, and you probably should, you should go to Cathy's website. We'll give it away at the end. They just did an amazing 53-page report with Wine Direct and Enolytics talking about all sorts of data in the industry. And I wanted to dive into that just a little bit in here. And I noticed one of the things, I was only able to scan it, I wasn't able to read it all yet, but I'm a quick reader. I wanted to ask first about this idea of club memberships, because I noticed that the data is showing that the last 4 years up until 2023, the trend was up or slightly up, and now it looks like club memberships may be down and the attrition may be growing. Do you think that's going to be a growing trend?
Unfortunately, that's definitely what we're seeing right now, Ted, across the board. It's 1 to 2% down for the first time, as you noticed, in 5 years, which is very problematic, and we're worried about it. We're absolutely worried about it. However, at the same time, part of that report and part of the point of the report is to show that it's not all doom and gloom. Like, yes, that's bad news. However, there are people, wineries, who are bucking the trend.
Right.
And guess what? Those wineries are using data, they're using strategy, they're using, in a lot of cases that we talk about in this report, we're referencing Enolytics customers who, rather than be down 1 to 2% for wine clubs or direct-to-consumer sales in general, are up sometimes 19%, sometimes 14%, sometimes 8%. So really,
well, I know,
huge
Cathy, I
differences.
notice in there that when you're talking about that, and I think this applies to all businesses, but I'm sure it's more prominent in consumer package type products, is this idea of the packaging of the product and the brand. I remember one of the wines, I don't remember the last time I had it, but I remember when I had the first bottle of Ladybug, and there was a story, I think, behind the Ladybugs and how the wine was made. And, you know, it was just a great story, and the packaging and everything. And I remember being places like, I got to get some Ladybug. And I think that it seems like in the wine business, some of these wineries are getting really smart about how to attract new customers, right? Because they're really good. The wine may be what it is, but even so, it's still the story and the packaging. Is that what you're seeing as a trend?
Well, definitely, the story is the story, and I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller. This is what I do.
Yeah.
I get it. It's also, frankly, between you, me, and the lamppost, really pretty hard to make terrible wine today. Like it's hard. You have to try to
Is that
make
how they do
terrible
it in
wine.
Dahlonega? It still could be okay in Dahlonega?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I'm sure Delanico wine is lovely. I don't know for sure how they do it there. But my point, Ted, is that yes, there will always be super special wines, different because of the soil,
Right.
because of the climate, because of all kinds of the history, all kinds of beautiful things. Um, and there's also a huge part of the consuming public that frankly just wants to drink the stuff, that doesn't necessarily
Right.
care about all of the pomp and circumstance, so to speak. And so there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room for that. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
where
funny you say that, because I remember years ago, this is many years ago, I was dying to go see Opus, and I went to Opus, and the tasting room felt more like a medical room to me. And I
mm,
stumbled next door to Cake
mm,
Bread, or it was right next
mm,
door. And
mm,
Cake Bread looked real nondescript. It didn't look like much. You get in the wine. And I thought that to myself, I'm like, they got to be growing on kind of the same soil. I mean, they're not that
mm.
far from each other, yet Opus was $300 a bottle, and Cake Bread, which was great, might have been $50 a bottle, but I thought it was better wine. I really did.
And maybe you enjoyed the experience more, Ted,
Yeah.
because it didn't feel like a lab. It didn't feel like a medical sort of institutional kind of experience. Maybe there were, leather sofas that you sat on, or maybe there was, a sheepskin rug or something like that, which is and it's just it's a different style, it's a different approach. But that exactly is the story that wineries are telling. And wineries who know their story, and they're able to leverage it. They're able to leverage data, and we're moving into sort of the marketing part of things now, right? They're able to use digital marketing, digital tools, technology, to sell the wine by telling their story. Consumers are what they want every minute of every day, and we're doing a better job now of following that digital trail.
Well, and to be fair, Cathy, if you notice in Ted's story, to be fair to Opus, you said you stumbled your way, Ted, to the next place. So you might have had a different
Yeah.
pair of glasses on by the
Well,
time
I
you
think
made it.
Lee, I was working my way up 29 or whatever that road is there. And
Yeah.
by the time I got there, I don't know how much I could see, but I just kept drinking.
Cathy, two quick topics I need to hear because of your expertise. Again, I'm very ignorant with respect in this space, although I usually just drink whatever people get around me and I trust their judgment. Two big
Mm,
topics I want you to touch base on. Number one,
mm,
we've all seen the movie Somm, or most people have seen the documentary movie Somm, and there's a Somm 2, and I'm curious of your opinion and take on that. And the second one is there was something in the news in the past year or so of this giant wine scam where this gentleman was selling the wine. I'm sure you're aware of it. And it came out in the public media of him repackaging old wine or something. I said, two quick topics because I'm leaning on your expertise here.
yeah, for sure. So the second one, let me just kind of address that first. What happened there is that there was a huge appetite for fancy wines. Ted, I think you're talking about Opus One, and it's a fancy wine. It has a great brand,
Fancy.
and they've done a wonderful job of communicating, what they find to be valuable, and leveraging critics' reviews and things like that. And so that's what a lot of Napa had done, and that's what a lot of Bordeaux had done. And so what that translates to the less ethical kind of wine people among us is that they could fabricate um, a label and put kind of wine inside a bottle that tastes kind of similar, and then slap that label on it and sell it in a not not legal way, but make a killing on it basically, because people are looking for that cachet. People are looking, some people are looking for that cachet. Some people, on the other hand, are like, don't even tell me about it. Like I don't even know. Like I don't even want to know about it. I don't care, frankly.
But that was
So
resolved, I think. They found that out. That's not happening again, but
Yeah.
they were able to put a lid on that. Is that correct?
and yes, and there's also it was a learning opportunity for sure. And a lot of people learned from that. A lot of people, he went to jail, basically. And I think
Was that good?
I think he's out now. But he went to jail. And but there's also people now who are more educated around all of us are more educated around identifying fake wines, not only fake news, but fake wines as well.
So
So
in transitioning to identifying good wine versus great wine, jump to that documentary that ignorant people like myself, Psalm 2. Do you like those documentaries? Did you feel they were appropriate, or did you have any other recommendations for viewers to they want to look into wine? How would they do that?
Yeah, so there's two questions that I get asked most often. And one you've already asked me, which is how do we pronounce my last name? Which is, oh yeah, that's the question that I get asked the most. The question I get asked the second most is what wine do I prefer? What do I like to drink? And I have to be very diplomatic about it and also a little bit cheeky about it. Because my answer, if somebody asks me, what's my favorite wine, my answer is the wine that's in my glass. The wine I'm drinking right now is my favorite wine, frankly.
It's
Because
I
wonderful.
like that.
I'm a believer, like just drink it. Like, yes, I have a couple bottles that I'm kind of holding on to, but I'm not a collector by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a believer in if you want to drink it, if you want to share it, especially, Ted, we're gonna do this in a couple weeks. I'm gonna open my cellar. And Ted, come on, let's go pick something. And you'll be like, okay, I'm gonna pick this. It looks
That's going to be a
expensive.
lot of fun.
It looks expensive. I'm like, does it? Like, okay, let's open it. So it's
Uh,
not, that's not the
Before we
most
get
important.
before we get to the plead the fifth section, Lee brought this up, so I definitely want to have you tell our viewers about this, because a lot of entrepreneurs, some that do well, they collect something. Some people, cars, boats, watches, whatever it may be. But a lot of wine collectors out there. Where's the best place to start for somebody who might want to collect some wine? I see all these websites that are out there that you can get
Mm,
packages and deals.
mhm.
Any direction on that for people watching?
I think that in terms of collecting, it comes down to what resonates with you. Maybe it could be the wine you like to drink, the cake bread, more than the Opus one for you, Ted. Or maybe it's, you know what, I traveled to Margaret River with my family and I brought home this amazing Cabernet Sauvignon or this amazing Chardonnay from Western Australia. And then maybe the core of your collection is Cabernet Sauvignon from Margaret River because you went there and you have these beautiful memories of it. And frankly,
Right.
really enjoyed it. Like if it were me, like that's where I would start.
I
Maybe
will
you went,
say one of my favorite places on the planet, I think I've been there 4 times now, is the Carneros Inn, which is really like right in between Napa and Sonoma. I go in those little cottages. The bathroom floors are heated. There's an outdoor shower. And Lee, there's champagne, and Carneros champagne there is actually amazing. And my wife and I, we love it there. And a lot of people have heard of the famous restaurant, the French Laundry, right? But Thomas Keller has other restaurants, Lee, in Napa, and the one that we go to is called Ad Hoc. And they make one meal for everybody in the restaurant. So nothing else that you can get. Is the best fried chicken that I ever had in my whole life was at Ad Hoc.
so Ted, that tells me like you've already said a lot about your taste. You've already said a lot about your taste, Ted, and I feel like that's the theme running through the cellar, the collection that you would have.
Right,
It's walk into it and pick anything. And not have it be too precious, but
right.
also have it be, I mean, the French call it vin de soif, like wine that you drink, like not wine that you necessarily put away, but wine that you drink. And it's I can, we can hook you up with a whole bunch of those.
Lee, that kind of made she kind of described it now because I hold on to nothing. So this kind of explains it now. I either use or throw away everything. So
Very, very
that,
true. Very, very
that
true.
explains it all. I got a psychology review today. It explains it all.
You
So
metabolize
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, guys, as we wrap this up, and again, Cathy, we wish you were in studio with us. It's always better in person, but we appreciate you as you're traveling to do this. We come to our favorite section, which is our plead the fifth, where you get to plead the fifth one time. We hope you don't plead the fifth, but in case there's something too questionable that you can't answer, we understand. But I'm going to throw one out at you real quick. It's my low hanging fruit. I love to know it. Number one, you're very self aware. I can tell you're an extraordinary communicator, and you're very self aware. So I would ask you, in your business journey thus far, what would be the one big mistake that you learned from, you realized that you didn't see it coming, that you said, wow, I never saw that?
Hmm. I would say it would be around publishing a book or not publishing a book. Or
Okay,
go or
elaborate.
going or going with the wrong publisher. Like I feel like that was a,
Yeah.
that was that could be bad. It could be
Wait, so
bad
could you
for.
describe a situation? Did you publish a book? Did you make a mistake? Just elaborate a little bit.
So there was always this book that I really wanted to hit out of the park, Lee. It's called Hungry for Wine, Seeing the World Through the Lens of a Wine Glass. And I called it Hungry for Wine because I wanted to do it in France and I wanted to do it in Italy and Hungry for Wine, California, Hungry for Wine, Texas, Hungry for Wine, New York. And I just didn't do it right. I didn't do it right. And I feel like I hit a foul ball, like first time at bat. And it was,
So, but think of what
and
you
I,
just said, Ken. I have to interrupt you. I love what you just said. Ted, audience out there, this is a woman you want to follow for this exact reason. I'm sorry, Cathy, I'm such a read of people. Just think about this. You pretty much are telling us that I did it wrong. I've made a catastrophic mistake. Is pretty much what you said. But it wasn't a swing and a miss and a strikeout. You said you hit a foul ball. You always have a positive twist on things. I love that about you already. I can't help myself. Most people, Cathy, would have said I struck out with the bases loaded, with the World Series on the line. But instead, you said, "Oh, I failed. I hit a foul ball." Because, like any entrepreneur, you're never giving up, and you have another swing and another at bat. So something subtle, Cathy. You may not even have noticed you said it, but I loved your thought process.
well, and maybe just to carry the metaphor, the baseball metaphor a little bit further, Lee, it's maybe I'm a contact hitter. Like I'm going to make contact, I'm not necessarily going to strike out, but it might go wrong, but I'm going to make contact. And
Wow,
I'm going to swing. I'm going to swing.
I
Put
love
All
me,
it.
right, Lee,
put me
I've
in,
got,
coach.
I've got some rapid fire, just because I want to know questions, just because I want to know, and I feel like this is maybe some etiquette and other things in here. I want to know, first of all these years at Trader Joe's, $2 Chuck, good wine, not good wine. I heard it won competitions. I mean, is it half decent wine?
Yes.
It
Rapid
is.
fire. Yeah, it could be. I would say probably 80% of Trader Joe's wines,
Okay.
perfectly fine.
Is it
Perfectly fine.
okay? Is it okay? And I'll admit I've done this before, but I feel like maybe I shouldn't. Is it okay to re-gift a bottle of wine?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Because if I don't like it, why wouldn't I re-gift it? But then I feel like, somebody going to call me out. They're not going to know the difference. I just put it in a different bag.
Put in a different bag. I mean, who's tracking? Like why
Yeah,
does wine
yeah,
have to be so precious? Like
right.
just drink it
All
and
right.
enjoy
I
it.
plead the fifth. Listen, Lee, you haven't had these, and I have, but you will. Cathy makes the best cookies in the world. What's in the cookie recipe?
So it's a New York Times recipe adapted by Dory Greenspan, and the original creator is a Japanese American woman who has a pastry shop in Paris. It's called Moko Nuts, Mokonuts. You can look it up online. There's poppy seeds, cranberries, rye flour, chocolate. Those are the main ingredients, and sea
Oh
salt.
my God, they are so good, Lee. Unbelievable. All right.
Thank
I'm
you.
in. Are
I
you
want to
still? Can I
know.
throw one?
I got one more. One more. I got
Go.
two more, but I'll do one, then you'll do one, I'll do one. I want to know what's the one winery in Napa Valley, because that's probably the place people go the most, that they've never heard of before that they probably should try.
Ooh, I am gonna. I am gonna
Could you
plead the
give
fifth.
us two? How about two?
I might need to plead the fifth one on that. Plead the fifth on
Go.
that. Then
Ted
this
got
is
it.
why I say, somebody asked me what my favorite wine is. I say the wine that's in my glass. What's your favorite wine in Napa? All of them.
All of them. All of the you choose D, all of the above. So Cathy, I'll ask one before Ted wraps us up. And again, I am not the Debbie Downer, but I'm asking all of the difficult questions. My apologies, because I love that you're a contact hitter. I wanted to hear the errors of your way and potential mistakes because you have it all together. And for viewers and entrepreneurs out there, you make it look easy. So I want to enlighten and bring apart that it's not been an easy journey from you. So I've seen by your hand, you're a married woman. I see, which is wonderful. And I would love to ask this question. If we had your spouse on the screen with us, and I were to ask your spouse, what is the one thing you would change about Cathy? What would your spouse say?
It's like the newlywed game.
That is the newlywed game. What
Yeah.
would
That's
my
good.
spouse say? He might say I work too hard. He might say I don't take days off. Um, he might say on Saturday mornings I spend too much time sitting up in bed reading because that's my reading time, Saturday mornings. Um, I don't think there'd be a whole lot of complaints, though, I have to say, for
Fair. So no
myself.
changes, maybe just you work a little too hard.
I think so. I think
Fair.
so.
Fair answer. Very fair answer.
This is why we all hang out, because we work too hard. We do. We do. We just, it's in your DNA. You can't escape it.
But it's also, I mean, and our Leadership Atlanta class teases me all the time, Ted, are you actually working? Like you're drinking, they think I drink wine all
Yeah. You're
day. Like,
drinking wine.
are
You're
you
not really
actually
working.
working? Like, is this work? This you working? Is what they say. I'm like,
Brilliant.
yes, actually, this is me working.
All right, Lee, I want to finish with this, and then we want to have Cathy tell the audience where they can sign up for the white paper and the download, because I'm going to read it this weekend, but I started skimming through it. It's pretty fascinating. So one of my favorite movies is Sideways. And I mean, Paul Giamatti was unbelievable in there. But the one wine he talks about the whole movie is this Cheval Blanc, 1961. He ends up eating it like with a hamburger and onion rings or something. Is that actually like a famous good wine?
It is. There's a couple, well, there's a couple of vintages. 1982 in Bordeaux is like iconic, iconic vintage. But that it's such a satire. That movie is such a satire.
It's
And
unbelievable.
it is. And also what is so just devastating to me is what that movie did to Merlot, to the sales of Merlot, which is
Did
one
it
of my
crush
favorite.
it? It crushed the sales of Merlot?
Yes, in favor of Pinot Noir, or even vice versa, but like whatever it was, it just was really devastating for the production. And I hate that happened because it's one of my favorite grapes. I will say that Merlot is one of my favorite grapes. I'll go on the record for saying that.
Wow. Yeah, it's great stuff. He was great. If you all haven't seen The Holdovers, Paul Giamatti is in The Holdovers. He's on very rarely today, Lee, do you get a movie that actually has dialogue and it's like the
Mm,
scripted, everything's like bang, but
mm,
it was a great movie.
mm. I've also seen Origin recently, and that
Yes.
was that was knock your socks off, knock your socks off. Like I'm literally sitting in the back row, like covering my head at some point. Like it was devastating. It was devastating in some parts.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'll add that to my list.
yeah. Origin,
Origins it
good
is.
stuff.
Yeah, Cathy, like yourself, I'm always happy most of the time. So I have to watch movies that are the opposite of that to realize, oh my
Mm,
gosh, there is some challenging stuff out there. My poor wife can't take it. So
mm.
I tend to watch them alone because it just puts you back into normal reality, not this happy world that me, you, and Ted live in all the time.
Unfortunately. Well, but next time I see you guys, I'm gonna bring wine and we're gonna open it. And we're gonna drink it from dark colored glasses, and everybody's gonna get it wrong. And then we're gonna bring an expensive wine and a cheap wine, and we're gonna get that wrong too, and it'll be great.
So, Cathy, we have interviewed a number of people in the space of spirits, not wine, and they have come into studio. And by the end of the studio, I'm not driving home by the end of the show. So I'm sorry we missed
Yeah.
today, but we've got to make it another time. Absolutely.
I'm in. Count me in. Absolutely.
Yeah. I forgot who made the little cans. Was it Prime Meridian, or what was the name of
Yeah,
the company that made it?
Post Meridian,
Post
exactly.
Meridian. Yeah. Cosmo in a can. Cathy, this has been amazing. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insight about business, first of all, and the platform that you built, what's happened in the wine industry. It's always super fascinating, not only to me, but I know a lot of our viewers, entrepreneurs, and people that listen to the show are wine collectors themselves. So I know they'll get a lot out of this. The white paper literally is like fresh, right? It just is coming out, the one that you did in a partnership with Wine Direct. How can people who are listening to this or watching this get the white paper?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Ted. So enolytics.com, Enolytics, enolytics.com. You on that there's a search function, you can search for it there. Or there's also a link you'll find in education to something called Enolytics 101, which is our
Mhm.
weekly newsletter. And you can find out about it there too.
Well, this has been awesome. You're awesome. I love what you're doing, not only in entrepreneurship, but just as a civic leader here in Atlanta. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And thanks so much for being on this episode of the Shrimp Tank with us.
Such a pleasure. Once I knew I was coming on, I started listening to episodes, and you guys are doing wonderful. Thank you for telling these stories, especially from all the different angles that you guys find to sort of to tease things out. You're right. Like you've got to get your boots on the ground to sort of get that MBA. But you're telling the narratives. You're storytellers too.
Cathy, thank you for those
Thank you.
words. Cathy, we have people like you. You guys are telling the narrative. We just blaze the opening and you walk through it. And more importantly, I guess I would say, let me retract that, Ted. I have to. We just lob the ball over the plate. You make contact.
I like it. Well done.
Fair.
Like it.
Well done.
Thank you, guys.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp